welcome everybody. I am Jesse Mogul, and thank you for joining us on the American Contingency Podcast. We are a united nationwide community of steadfast Americans ready for any challenge that comes our way. We inform, equip, and train so you can prepare, respond, and recover from any man-made or natural disaster or situation. And the definition of a man-made situation that we would want to prepare, respond, and recover from can be extremely broad. And in the world we live in now, the economy of our country has never been more important for people to pay attention to, be thinking about, and be planning ahead for. For the month of June, within the American contingency world, this is the month that we focus on our income and our economics, and that we put a lot of our attention in our blogs, in the podcast, obviously, and in the conversations that we're having over on our member-only website and within the app around what are we doing with our income and economics to prepare ourselves for the myriad of situations that can arise. And we're all very well aware of our bank accounts. I have no doubt that we are the kinds of people who are thinking about how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. All right, I get that it's only June, but there's still Christmas 6 months away. And for some of us, we might be still paying off those Christmas bills from last month. Our car can break down. Our house could need some repairs. Here comes the summer. We want to go outside. We want to do vacations. We want to have holidays. Maybe there's some repairs around the home that we want to be thinking about. There's always something looking to take our money. And there's always something that we're looking to spend our money on. And so how are we focusing on our income and economics? And not just looking at how is the United States' economy doing, or whatever country you might be living in, how is your economy doing? Because just because our stock market up doesn't mean that we're all, living in a land of milk and honey. The stock market being up or down might be an indicator to some how well the economy is doing. I look at my bank account and that tells me how well my economy is doing. The stock market doesn't really affect me. I'm not in the stock market. And a business coming out saying that they had profits or losses last year doesn't affect my bottom line, because Coca-Cola or Apple or Amazon doesn't do as well this year as they did last year. Doesn't really affect me other than the fact that other investors might panic, start selling off things, then everybody's doing the Chicken Little sky is falling routine and running around, and they start selling things off, and everybody gets into a state of panic. And 2008, 2009, or 1929 goes down again, and all of a sudden it's like, what the hell is happening? These mega national corporations do not dictate how well I feel about my income and economics. I dictate how well I feel about my economics, and what's going on in your home should be the main driver about how you feel about your income and economics. And while I do understand that there are so many variables that can play a role in the amount of income we're able to bring in, how many gigs we're having, how many times we're being scheduled, how often we're able to get overtime and things of that nature, we want to be paying attention to our process, what we can control. Very rarely can we control the ultimate of ultimate results, where if I work this much and make this much money, I can save this much money. Because inevitably, like with my current vehicle, I'm having issues with the catalytic converter. And is that going to cost me $2,500? Or am I going to get Hyundai to be able to pay for some of that? Because they are slightly culpable because of this engine recall that started up that's been an issue now with me for a year. Like, all of a sudden, I've got some issues with this ditch in my easement, and it's causing my backyard to flood, and it's killing my grass. Is the city going to come out and help me fix that? Because that's not even technically my easement, that it's not even part of my land that I own. Or are they just going to say, man, good luck with that, dude. We built it, you fix it. I don't know. And how much stress I'm willing to take on from all of these external factors around my income and economics is going to greatly decide or evoke within me how I'm going to wake up emotionally each day. So what I'm going to discuss today is a couple of things that I have done over the course of this year, along with many of my clients, because I do a lot of career coaching within my own business. So I've met with a lot of people looking to change careers, looking to figure out how to make more money in their current career, and how to get their income and economics back on track. Because while I'm not a certified public accountant, I am very good with numbers, and I can look at people's credit card statements and immediately start helping them locate places that they could do a little cut, a little shimmy here and there, and next thing you know, they've been able to create an extra $500 a month in their lives. Where could we put that towards something that would actually bring a massive change in their lives versus just pulling out the credit card and buying Starbucks or fast foods 5 days a week and then wondering why there's nothing left over at the end of the month. I've been working very hard at paying down $30,000 in debt this year. I'm already $21,000 into having it paid off. Now I'm looking at about 9 to 10 because I have accrued some debt. And then, of course, I've got the car issue. I've got the ditch issue. Oh, yeah, and let's not forget about the crack in our back porch slab that we found that could spread to the actual slab of the house that we now have to pay attention to. And that could be a $6,000 or $10,000 problem. And inevitably, when we think we're ahead, something just likes to pop its head up like those little gophers in that game at Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese back in the day where you whack one mole and then another one just pops up. There's always something with its hand out asking me for my money. And if you have children, then you literally have whack-a-moles sleeping under your roof. It's like, finally getting ahead. Nope, they just decided to sign up for baseball, and now I got to go spend $300 on that. So let's discuss some of the things that I've done, and let's see how we might be able to bring them into your world and make them beneficial for you. There's two primary things that we're going to discuss. Although, can you have two primary things? If you have two priorities, you have no priorities. So there's going to be two main things we're going to discuss today that I have been doing this year to pay down the debt, and also understanding what it is that it does to affect my time, my availability, and my attention towards the other things that I want to do. Because anytime you decide that you're going to add a side hustle in, or you're going to start earmarking particular amounts of money towards debt or towards something else that you're looking to save money for, i.e. vacations, holidays, sending your kids to camp, that's going to take away an opportunity cost to go do something else. If I'm spending $21,000 on paying off debt, that's $21,000 I don't get to put into my 401k. That's $21,000 I don't get to put in my savings account or into one of those CDs or something else that the bankers want to sell me that I have no understanding of. So it's an opportunity cost when we decide that we're going to take on another job, a side hustle, or completely change jobs, as well as when we start diverting money from where we have been spending it to where we would prefer to be spending it. And those were two huge decisions I had to make at the beginning of this year. I love this job. I love what American Contingency has brought into my life, but at the same time, I can't just solely rely on this as one of my streams of income. I have multiple streams of income, and at the beginning of the year, I decided I didn't have enough, and I needed to figure out a way to inject roughly $2,000 to $3,000 more into my life in order for me to be able to pay off this debt and move on from this debt I had been carrying around for years. One of the interesting things about the way that I had been carrying around this debt was that back in 2009, 2010, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I had my identity stolen. And in the process, this person racked up $13,000 of debt under my Social Security number, under my name. And regardless of the fact that I was ultimately able to prove that I wasn't the one who racked up that $13,000, the banking system didn't see it that way. And I got put into this thing called the checks system, CHEX. And if you've ever been in the checks system, then you understand right out the gate that this thing is like a death sentence to your credit score and to your financials for 7 years. I couldn't get a regular bank account. I couldn't open up any more bank accounts. No way I was getting a loan. I mean, my entire credit score was tubed. I mean, I think it was like in the 400s. I don't even know if they have a credit score for as low as my credit score was. And so for this 7 years, I had to utilize a credit card, a debit card that my job had provided for me, where basically they would put my money into the bank, but I couldn't necessarily go into this bank and no writing checks, no having a savings account. I was literally an account that only existed because I had this job at this hotel. I could go into that bank and deposit cash, and I could withdraw cash, but I was not allowed to do anything that you would normally consider a banking opportunity. And so from 2010 to 2017, this was my life. And this is before Chime. This is before Cash App, Venmo, PayPal wasn't even much of a thing. So it wasn't like there was a lot of opportunities for me to have other methods of setting up any kind of banking system that would have behooved me to not have to go to literally like a check cashing place and pay them $40 to cash my check. So luckily I did find this job that was able to provide that for me. But again, if somebody paid me with a check, I could not go in there and sign the back of it and deposit it into this bank. For 7 years, I had to go to one of those check cashing places and have them rob me blind in order to just get the money that was owed to me. So it was not a very good situation for those 7 years. And ironically, I got sober in 2017 as well. So everything sort of culminated into this opportunity for me to finally fix my credit. And again, bottom of the basement, I had one credit card for $1,000. That was it. It was the only one that didn't get taken away after my identity got stolen. And so here I am at 2017. I'm 40 years old. My credit is so low that even a meerkat would have not been able to locate it, no matter how far down it dug. And here I am ready to get myself back into a situation where a 40-year-old can feel comfortable about how they'll feel financially at 50 years old. And this is a bit of my journey from how I'm here now at 47 going on 48 with a credit score well above 750, multiple credit cards with much bigger limits on them than $1,000. And so I will discuss a little bit about that because some of you might be going through your own precarious predicaments with your credit score and with what credit cards you have available to you. And you might be thinking, I started off, in the land of milk and honey, and that's how I was able to accomplish what I'm getting ready to express to you. That is not the case. A 500 credit score in 2017 to over a 750 now, and it was done very deliberately with a lot of thought about where my payments towards my debt were going and how many jobs I had in order to bring me money. Now, I don't have children, and at the time I didn't have a long-term relationship, so certainly there was a lot less factors around my time. And for those of you who are married, do have children, yes, there are going to be factors around your time and your attention and your prioritization other people are going to potentially have a say in. So conversations around how you're going to pick up a side hustle, how much time is going to be devoted to that. Maybe you're missing some baseball games or some recitals, and letting everybody in the family know that there's a reason why we're missing these. I will take time. I will be there for the important events, but I can't be there for every practice. I can't be there for every game anymore. Mommy and daddy got to go off and get this secondary job in order to put ourselves in a better situation. And a 7-year-old is probably not going to understand that very well, but they'll at least get that you're talking to them about it. We don't live in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s anymore where we don't talk about things at the dinner table. We live in a world where a kid can get a hold of a smartphone and hop on some app, at the minimum Google, let alone TikTok or Instagram, and find out a whole lot of information that you may not think that they're ready for, but society is ready to deliver up to them. So let's talk about the credit card debt first. The credit card debt had racked up to about $30,000, and no matter how much I tried to get it down, I was not able to put a major dent into it. And now let's go ahead and bring in my side hustle idea. For over 20 years, I have been in and out of the food service industry, food and beverage, for those of you who are familiar with that. And I've done them all, from working the dish pit to working the cooking line to serving to bartending to managing to being a key. I have done every single job that a restaurant or a hotel food and beverage department would ask of me. And because of that, I have a really good skill of being a server and a bartender, and what I'm able to pull off in that realm just through muscle memory is pretty amazing, even to me, whenever I can look back at how well I can just slide right into that world again and still be extremely good at this job. And so at the beginning of this year, I realized that nothing about what I had done over the last 2 years had solved the debt problem. So it was time to actually do something shocking to myself. And so even though I left Los Angeles and told myself I was done serving and bartending, I decided here in Huntsville to go back into that world because I needed a quick injection of $30,000. And I figured I could make that over the course of a year. That roughly put me at $2,500 a month is what I would need after taxes in order to achieve this $30,000, which puts me roughly at $625 a week. How could I create $625 a week into my life? So I went out, I got a restaurant job. It's in the morning because I'd rather get up early and go serve breakfast and be done at 2 p.m. than having to look at the clock all day waiting to go into a nighttime job from 4 to 9. Now, if you have a normal day job, then you're probably not going to be able to pull that off except for on the weekends. So you might be looking for a nighttime job. And if you've got experience in the service industry, then certainly you're going to be well prepared to go into that world. As someone who lives in a growing community, it is very obvious to me that most of these restaurants do not have enough staff. So even if you don't have experience in it, if you're willing to learn and hustle, most of these places are going to have a space for you. They're going to be looking for staff. And would they rather hire a high schooler or a college person who's got many other reasons for why they're looking to make money versus somebody in their 30s, 40s, or 50s who clearly is taking on this job with a purpose, with a mission. And that's me. At 48 years old, I'm working around a bunch of 22-year-olds now, right? And they're all talking about going out and getting drunk the night before and going to the club. And here I'm making all this money. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go study for my master's in psychology when I leave here. I'm going to go work for this company, making blogs and doing podcasts for them. Plus, I've got my own sobriety and recovery podcast. I run an online academy around leadership and communication. I've got so many different side hustles and streams of income. This restaurant was just one for me. And by taking on this restaurant job and giving them 3 days a week, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., I've been able to pay off $21,000. And I am well on my way to getting the other 9 paid off. And then what will I be able to pay off from there? Maybe it's getting some help around this ditch in the backyard, or it's going to be definitely fixing this crack in our slab. And it's going to absolutely be making sure that my car is ready to roll for the next 3 to 5 years. Because I've seen these interest rates, and I don't want any part about buying a new car right now. So when you start asking yourself, what are my skills around a side hustle to be able to pay off debt? You may not have 20 years in the food and beverage industry, but you're going to have a talent. You're going to have a skill others are going to be willing to pay for. And it's going to be up to you to sit down by yourself, if you're the only one responsible for your time, or with your spouse or with your partner or with your kids, and discuss things that they notice that you're really good at. You might be really good being handy around the house, and maybe you'd be perfect to go do something on TaskRabbit, where I went on there the other day in preparation for this podcast. There are people here in Huntsville charging $70 an hour to come to your house and lift something heavy. And that's a $70 flat fee to show up to your house. It might just be moving a refrigerator, but if nobody else has a friend who is willing to come over and help them move their refrigerator and they really need this thing done, they're willing to pay $70 on TaskRabbit. What are some of your skills that you might be able to put up on a website like TaskRabbit? Do you even know that TaskRabbit exists? Now you could go on there and you might be able to find somebody who wants their lawn mowed. And you've got a lawnmower and you've got maybe somebody in your own neighborhood. You just got to push that thing with your weed eater down to their house, $40, get 3 or 4 people like that. Boom, that's $200 a week. That's $800 a month. Over the course of an entire year, you just made $9,600 more by doing 4 yards a week at $50 a pop, right? And so if you do the math, you realize it's the little things that add up. When I'm at this restaurant and the young kids are tired of serving tables an hour before close and they're tossing tables to me right and left, they think, whatever, it's a $50 check, it's a $7 tip. I don't care about that right now. But I've done the math. And if I'm willing to take on just one extra $7 tip per shift, that's $21 a week. That's $84 a month. That's 84, that's $168. How about it's $1,008 is how much I would end up being able to make over the course of an entire year simply by taking one more table per shift from somebody who doesn't want that table. $1,008. What if I can get 2 or 3 more tables a shift because people don't want to take those tables on? If I can get 3 more tables per shift, that'd be $3,024 over the course of a year. That's part of my mortgage, and then we're also seeking to pay off our mortgage way faster than the bank would probably prefer. So we're trying to make 2 extra payments a year. So that comes up to an extra $500 on top of our $2,500 mortgage. So if I could take on 3 extra tables per shift consistently over the course of an entire year, I'd be able to pay off 1 month's of mortgage plus the $500 extra payment that we're seeking to put in so we can pay our mortgage down quicker, simply by taking on 3 tables. It's the little things that add up, y'all. And whether maybe you've got skills on the computer and you could go put yourself on Upwork or Fiverr or freelancer.com. Maybe you've got some skills as a writer, a copy editor. Maybe you do digital marketing. You've got some experience as a graphic designer from back when you were in college, and now you're a stay-at-home mom or dad. But there's opportunities on the computer when everybody goes to sleep for you to be able to bring in an extra $20, $50, $80 a day. And I'm telling you, that money adds up. We have a gig economy that's running right now, and whether we like it or not, that seems to be where our economy is moving us towards, which I've read some books is the natural evolution of an economy. Right? We started off as being farmers and agriculturalists. We moved to industrialists. Then we start moving into the service economy, and now we're moving ourselves into this gig economy where a lot of people are finding these little side hustle jobs being major money makers in their life. Corporate America is not as stable as it used to be. Opening up your own business is certainly a challenge. Trust me, I'm running my own and have been now for 7 years. So we want to be looking for some stabilization in our lives when it comes around to our income and economics. If you've got a vehicle that you're willing to put a little bit of wear and tear on, you could do an Uber, a Lyft, a DoorDash. And no, these things do not pay as much as they used to, and they may not pay as much as you would prefer, but until you go off and try them and start running the math and figuring out wear and tear on car and gas expended, is it even worthy of you doing? Run the experiment for a month and see what it actually brings in. Worst case scenario, you tried it, you said, this isn't for me, let me go try something else. Maybe you're craftsy and you can put some things on Etsy or eBay or Amazon. Maybe there's a part of you that's always wanted to teach something, and you could create an ebook or a course or some sort of printable thing that you could then, create a whole lead magnet for. I mean, that's a whole thing. I do it, trust me. But there's opportunities abound when you sit down and ask yourself, what are some skills that you have that you take for granted? Now, it's easy for me to see that I'm a great server and bartender. I've been doing it for years, worked in some high-end places. I've been taught how to be really good at something even whenever it's super busy. And I'm just a natural chatterbox. So it's not difficult for me to make random conversation with strangers in order to be able to give them great service, be a great teammate with everybody else, and then be able to make great tip money. And you might live in a community that's super small, and you might be thinking, well, Jesse, I don't have these restaurants. I don't have these opportunities. I don't know the infinite variables that all of you are playing with. It's going to be up to you to stop saying, I can't figure this out, and start saying to myself, how can I start to figure this out? Because you can live with that limiting belief that I live in a small town, I don't have these opportunities. This is not the biggest city in the world. It's Huntsville. It is not huge by any stretch, but there are a lot of people moving in. We do live in an area where it's growing really rapidly, and opportunities are coming up. Are they the ones that are going to pay $80,000 a year? For the most part, you need to have some sort of background in working with the government to get those really high-paying jobs. But if you're looking for a side hustle, if you're looking for a shift, it's up to you to sit down and figure out, do I need to take an online class in order to get this certification, yada, yada, yada. I don't understand your variables, but I do know this. If you keep doing things the same way you've been doing them, you're going to keep getting the same results. And when I hear people say, I can't, I hear you fighting for a life you've already told me you're sick and tired of. If you want to figure out a way out, then it's going to be about going inside, locating skills, talents, perhaps a hobby that you have. You might be really good at an instrument. Could you be a beginning instructor for someone who's just looking to pick up a guitar or a set of drumsticks? You are going to inevitably have a talent that you might be overlooking. Finding that and exploring that as a side hustle is a really great way to start bringing in more money without having to completely uproot your entire life and move to a different city where there's more opportunities, or completely change your job. Now, if you despise your job and you would really like to have a better one, then start looking at areas within your town that have other job opportunities. And what would you need to do to put yourself in that situation to be hireable by them? I get that a lot of people think that we live in an ageism society where they would rather hire a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old over a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old. But we all have heard the chatter, whether it's real or make-believe, about millennials and Gen Zers and about their work ethic versus a Gen Xer or a baby boomer's work ethic. It's up to you to put your foot out there and show people that you've got the growth mindset, that you have the dedication and the discipline and the flexibility to be an asset on their team. Once you get in there, then bust your ass from day one and show them that there is no let up. That once you get comfortable there, you're not going to start slacking off because they've already seen that behavior in other employees. Be the one who steps up time and time again and who don't. I personally do not take an affront when I see these kids slack off and I'm doing all the running side work. I honestly don't care. I want to be moving. I want to be in flow. I am here. I am a man on a mission. What I am doing for myself when I walk into this restaurant is of the utmost importance to me. How other people choose to behave, that's on them. If we run out of glassware and I've got to be hustling while I just got quadruple sat, then so be it. I'm not going to remember this shift in 3 days anyways, but I'm definitely going to notice that money in my bank account whenever the check comes through. So be looking at ways that you can side hustle to bring money in. And what are we going to do with that money once we start bringing it in? Well, for me, it was paying off this debt. And I'm going to close up the show with how I was able to get this credit card debt down so far. Now, remember, in 2017, I had a credit score that the devil was playing with because it was so low, and I had one credit card. Well, what I started to do was put myself out there and started getting other credit cards, and most of them were fair balances of $250, $500. And I would just put $250 and $500 on these credit cards for a couple months, making sure that I paid them off completely every single month. Then once I got about 4 or 5 months into it, and I realized I was at my 6-month mark where I could ask for a increase in my limit, because most credit cards are putting you first get a credit card, they're not just going to immediately give you a higher limit. But if you got about 6 months of history with them, they're going to be willing to give you an increase in your limit. Even a year if you decide you want to wait that long. But what I've found is about every 6 months, the website software will allow me to ask for a increase in my limit. You don't even got to talk to a human anymore. And it asks you about your income and stuff. And you can always just put in whatever. I mean, I have no idea what the algorithm is deciding on whenever it wants to raise my limit $2,000 versus $500. But allow yourself to be as honest with this computer software as you choose, because to me, telling them I make $108,000 when I absolutely do not doesn't bother me ethically, because I'm just looking for an increase in my limit. I'm not going to slap $5,000 on this credit card, cut it in half, and walk away and let that debt fall into the collection agency. I'm looking to increase my limits so that I can continue doing the process I'm about ready to explain to you. So I would go off and I got 3 new credit cards, a Discover, an American Express, and a MasterCard to go with the Visa I already had. And I started charging groceries and gas, and I would pay them all down. Then at month 5, I would allow all to roll over so that the credit card company would get some interest off of me, because I wasn't sure if the algorithm could pay attention to that or not. And I've Googled this and have found no definitive answer. But I thought, well, at least the credit card company can feel like they're making something off of me. Then after the 1 month rollover where I allowed them a small bit of interest so they could feel like they made something off of me, I'd go on the website, I'd go into the credit card, and I would ask for an increase. And to a T, they all doubled me from $500 to $1,000. And then I just kept repeating this process every 6 months. Now, I did have a job that was paying me roughly about $50,000, not 50,000 years, although I have definitely worked at places where it felt like a shift was 50,000 years. I was working a job making $50,000 a year after taxes, and so I was very mindful to put money on these credit cards and pay them down every single month so that I would start to build up a very good history of making all my payments on time. And I didn't want to take on interest because I don't just want to give people my money for no reason, especially if I've got the money in my bank account. And so as I began to build these up, after 2 years, I was finally able to get each one of these credit cards up to roughly about $2,000 to $4,000, because they would start giving me $1,000 increase in my limit each time. And now, mind you, at this whole time, I'm carrying on debt, that $13,000 from having my identity stolen. So once I was able to get these credit cards up, then I had to start paying attention to where I had accumulated debt in other areas of my life. I had issues with my car. I had issues with my student loans. I had issues with other debt that I had just taken on that was sitting there that I was able to then begin to shift around. And here's what I mean by shift around. If you are in a lot of credit card debt and you have limits that are available to you, you can do these things called balance transfers. Now, when you do a balance transfer, they're going to charge you 5% right out the gate for monies transferred. So if you've got $3,000 on one credit card that you're eating interest on every month at, let's say, $100, and you want to move that $3,000 worth of debt over to a balance transfer to another credit card that's got a $3,000 limit on it, you're going to get charged 5% for doing that, which is roughly 50. I don't know why I keep saying roughly. I know all these numbers like the back of my hand, which is going to come down to exactly $50 per thousand that you transfer. So you're sitting here with one credit card at $3,000, eating $100 a month in interest. You move it over to a credit card that's got the space, so you're going to need it to be $3,150 for the space because they're going to charge you for that transfer fee right out the gate. And then boom, you've just moved $3,000 of debt that you were getting $100 a month in interest for over to another credit card where, while it did cost you $150 to move that money, you're no longer paying interest on that money for anywhere between 6, 10, 12, 18 months. A really smart maneuver here is to figure out how much money you're paying in interest, how much is it going to cost to transfer over. So in the math we're doing right now, if I have a $3,000 credit card that I'm paying $100 a month in interest for, and I'm not going to be able to pay that credit card down in any method that's going to get that $100 to go down rapidly, then basically in 2 months, I've eaten $200 in interest. Or for one transaction, I've moved that $3,000 to another credit card and been charged $150. Now, in 1.5 months, that $150 I paid to move the money actually paid for itself because that's $150 I'm not putting towards interest on that same balance that I just moved. And the beautiful thing about this is now you get to do the paying of it down without getting any interest. So the principal stays the same. It's not growing. And I did this for all of my different debts. Rather than going to a debt consolidation place where they were probably going to put me in a situation that was not going to benefit me long term, I just started moving all of my credit card debt around. And all the other debts, if I could pay off a debt with a credit card, like my car issue, like my student loans, like I was able to figure out how to start putting some of this money onto credit cards, and then I would balance transfer it over. And then I wouldn't be paying any interest. And then I could just do the math and say, okay, I've got a year to pay off this $3,000 credit card. I can give it, $200 a month, which means I will pay off $2,400 of that in 1 year. And now I only owe $600 more. Could I pay off that other $600? Probably, if I listened to what I just said earlier and got myself a side hustle. So I'm paying attention to this maneuvering of this debt. And that's how I have been able to carry this $30,000 worth of debt around since COVID. It all came because of COVID. I've been carrying this around for years, just going from one balance transfer to the next. But it was saving myself money and just paying off the minimums while I was still trying to keep my head above water. So when we think about credit card debt, there can be consolidation places, and you would want to look into those. My concern with them is sometimes they have early payoff fee penalties, meaning if you debt consolidate 4 credit cards that were each $2,500, and now you're looking at a $10,000 lump consolidation, some of these places are looking forward to all the interest you're going to pay them. And if you try to pay it off early, they're going to stick you with a penalty. And it can often be very hefty because they don't want you paying it off early. If they put you on a 4-year plan to pay off this $10,000 at $200 a month, they want you to ride or die with that situation. And of course, it's going to be cheaper than the interest that you were eating because they're going to do the math well enough to make sure you feel that savings. But what happens if you come into a side hustle and all of a sudden you could pay off that $10,000 in consolidated debt 3 years early. Well, they're going to stick you with a $4,000 penalty for doing that because they don't get to have their interest that they were looking forward to. You're going to want to be extremely mindful about these debt consolidation places because that's what they're looking to do, is achieve their interest back from you in order to keep themselves running. I mean, I understand the business model. It just doesn't benefit me any more than the check cashing places that will give you a payday loan. That is not benefiting you. And if you're finding yourself in that situation month after month where they're taking $50 to $100 of your money because you need it 4 days sooner, then figuring out a way to pick up a side hustle is absolutely going to benefit you. And if you're working from 9 to 8 and you barely have any time to do that, then yeah, I get time constraints. Again, your fixed mindset around what you're capable of versus the growth mindset around what you can achieve if you just put your mind to it are two very different things. What I'm describing here isn't necessarily a fix-all for everyone, but if we're sitting on a large amount of credit card debt and you have the ability to go out and get a new credit card, and let's say you're looking at $30,000 in credit card debt and you've got six credit cards, each with $5,000 limits, the likelihood that you're going to get a really good limit on one of those new credit cards you apply for is pretty good. And a lot of them are going to give you an offer of a zero balance transfer for like 18 months, right? Because they right out the gate, they want you putting money on this credit card. And if you get yourself a brand new credit card at $5,000, you could move another one of those credit cards over, saving yourself that money on interest. And if you really look at this, and again, I did look at this as a long-term strategy. So every 6 months to a year, I was going out looking for another credit card and then building up my limit on that credit card to the point where now I have multiple credit cards with 5-figure balance options on it that sit empty. Because I don't need to be spending that money. I just wanted these credit cards to be able to achieve paying off my debt without consolidating it. Because I did not want to have to deal with those companies. I have talked to them on the phone. The whole thing just didn't feel good to me. And if you have the opportunity to go out and get yourself a side hustle gig, bringing in an extra $500,000, $2,000, you have to understand that this isn't the rest of your life, but it is certainly what you can be doing now. That's how I see the serving job at that restaurant. That's how I see the bartending gig I picked up, is that it's not the rest of my life, but it is definitely 2024. What are you willing to do around your income in order to increase it? Right? If you have an extra room in your house and you want to Airbnb it out, go for it. If you're willing to have a stranger in your home, that's great. I don't care what you end up doing. I just want you to do something. Because looking at your bank statement and constantly seeing it in the red isn't benefiting you. And you're running yourself ragged. You've got constant stress. Something needs to change. And when I work at this restaurant, a lot of them, male, females alike, they've got spouses who might be staying at home more often to take care of the kid while they're there. And one guy in particular, he works in the morning, he leaves, he goes home, he takes over the responsibilities of taking care of the kids. And his wife goes to a nighttime job, and she's now bringing in more money so that they can be saving up to buy a house. What are you willing to do for 6 months, a year, 2 or 3 years that can help you achieve your income and economic goals? We can be moving money around from credit card to credit card only so long. At some point, we need to be able to pay off the debt. And I've read many different studies that the average American's $4,000 or $8,000 or $12,000 in debt. And it doesn't really matter what the average American is experiencing. It matters to you what you are experiencing. And yes, I understand that the economic times are rough. Have there been worse? Sure. Have there been better? Sure. Does any of that, again, matter? Sitting around a table, pissing and moaning about what the politicians are or are not doing in order to make your bank account bigger or smaller isn't benefiting the situation of being resolved. And we are American contingency. We are not sitting around pissing and moaning and complaining about things. We're figuring out solutions. Why is it good to join our network? Because there are thousands of people who have ideas, who have potential solutions that you could tap into. We're an organization that's looking for solutions, not complaining about the problems. Yes, I get it. We're all human. There's a part of us that just wants to sit around and complain a little bit just to have our voice feel heard. Good. Here's 10 minutes. Go ahead and complain about politics or the economy or, I don't know, that the sun is too bright or the clouds are too thick. Complain about whatever you want to complain about. Go. You get a certain amount of time. Feel good? You happy? Great. What are we going to do to fix the situation? Because You can sit there and watch the hurricane barrel down on your house all you want, but if you didn't think ahead and get some plywood and put it over your windows, congratulations, there's a good chance rocks are going to come through your glass. You want to be looking for solutions. I get it. Like I said, we're emotional creatures. We're going to want to have those ebb and flows where we get a little upset about things. But it's up to you to figure out what it is you can do for your family to come out of this. Yes, we can go through our credit cards and we can start taking out the trips to Starbucks and the trips to the fast food restaurants. But even when we go to the grocery store, those damn groceries seem to have gone up 33% across the board. I'm paying more for a bag of, great value chips from Walmart now than I absolutely was a year ago. But I'd rather spend $2 at Kroger on their generic chips than spending $5.49 on the name brand. I'm sorry, I do not have the extra $3. And if you extrapolate those bags of potato chips out and you buy 3 a week, that $3 is $9. Over the course of a month, that's $36. Over the course of just 10 months, that's $360 that you could save simply by buying the off-brand bag of potato chips. Little things add up. $3 here, $7 table there, $20 saved because instead of having Netflix and Hulu and Paramount and Disney all at once, you pick the 1 or 2 that you're going to watch for the next 3 or 4 months, and then you cancel or you pause the other memberships and you have one. And every 3 months, that's the one you watch. And you watch all the shows you want on it, then you cancel it. Because if you've got 5 streaming apps costing you $100 a month, you didn't really cut the cord as much as you just moved all your cable money to a bunch of individual apps. It's time to start seeing things from a new perspective. Our income in economics is not somebody else's problem to solve. It's ours to resolve. When we're looking for ways that we can prepare and respond and recover, we're going to want to have some money in the bank to buy the things we might need whenever all hell breaks loose. And I get that we're thinking that there's going to be this impending economic meltdown. And whatever happens in November could certainly resolve some of it, or it could certainly cause it to even become more disadvantageous to our bottom line when we look at our bank account numbers. But again, that's Washington, D.C., or that's your state capital making decisions that while they do trickle down and bother you, they may not necessarily completely eliminate nor alleviate nor fix nor cause all the problems you think they're causing. We are American Contingency, and we look for solutions. And yes, government policies are certainly going to mess around with some of the things that we're doing. But it's up to each one of us to figure out where do we create time in our lives to start resolving some of these things for ourselves. Because a tax cut or some handout isn't going to solve everything. I remember when we were getting all that COVID money and I started paying my debt down with that. Well, that came back to bite us in the ass because now we're going through inflation. Everything is 33% more. So I'd be willing to bet that $600 I was getting a week for that 3 or 4 months back when COVID first started has probably cost me 3-4 times that amount just in the amount of things I'm paying more for now due to inflation, because somebody out there thought it was a great idea to just start printing digital money and just throwing it out of airplanes like we all had nets that could grab it and save it. No. That was not a good idea, and we're paying the piper for it now. What we do now is up to us. Whether you're figuring out ways to move around your debt so that you can consolidate it on your own, getting zero balance transfers, whether you're picking up a side gig and bringing in a little bit of extra money, understand this. You might have to humble yourself. But you only have to feel humbled when you believe your life should have been one thing, but it's actually another thing. I could feel humbled at 48 working around a bunch of 22-year-olds, but that's only because I would have thought that I don't ever have to go back to the serving bartending world because I am better than that job. I have worked my way out of that job. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an addiction recovery coach. I'm a life coach. I'm a career coach. I help people succeed in life. What does it say about me when I'm working a serving job at 48? You know what it says about me is that I refuse to know for an answer, that I see a solution and I go at it. I attack it like a hungry bear. One day I won't be working in the restaurant industry anymore, but right now I am, and it's paying off massive amounts of debt, and it's helping me pay my mortgage down faster than I would be able to without this job. And if a stream of income disappears, then I'll figure out a way to bring in another one. And I will not take no for an answer from myself. I will not. If a place doesn't want to hire me, if the debt doesn't want to come down as fast because my actions still aren't behooving that predicament from resolving itself, then I'll figure out something else. But we are solution driven around here. And that's what I want you to be thinking about. When you say I can't or I won't or I don't, then you're just giving up. You're saying that's it. This is my lot in life and I have to accept it. But we don't. We were trained by the schooling industry to be factory workers, and most of us have fallen ourselves into either a white or a blue-collar job, or we're just clocking in, clocking out, working on somebody else's dream. Well, what are your dreams? If you're looking for people who are going to be able to support that, be able to give you some really great advice or support, or just be able to talk through some things without constantly negating your ideas, American Contingency offers those opportunities. We have a very robust network of members in all 50 states, all corners. We've got regional coordinators that help bring everybody together at least once every 3 or 4 months so that they can communicate and get to know each other better. We've got meetings within each individual city. We've got resources on our website that can train you. We've got blogs that I'm writing that definitely outline this stuff. My goodness, the amount of effort I put into the blogs on income and economics in the month for this month was extraordinary. I mean, to say that it was over 100 hours would be a blatant disregard for how valuable my time is. When it comes down to you figuring out solutions for things, it is up to you to stop telling yourself no and start figuring out ways that you can begin to say yes. You want to move around your debt? Figure out a way to do that so that you're not paying credit card companies to sit there and just revolve your credit. Then I've given you a very good roadmap to at least go research, let alone start trying to implement in your own life. Are you tired of being stuck at this one income level? Then maybe you go get a side hustle while getting another certification. If you're sitting here in corporate America hating your life every single day, but you love working with your hands, guess what? Trade jobs are in demand. Robots aren't going to be able to take over a plumbing job or an air conditioner repair job or a mowing job anytime soon. They're just not. But they could absolutely crunch numbers like an accountant could. So some of these degrees that all these kids are clamoring in line to achieve may not even be jobs that are very sought after within 3, 5, 10 years. But anything that takes working with hands, we are nowhere near having robots come into our house and solve a plumbing problem right now. You can send a drone in to dismantle a bomb all you want, but you're not going to be able to have a robot go in there and help the person who was the victim of the bombing talk through their issues and be able to resolve their PTSD. There are gigs out there that right now AI is not prepared to take over, and worrying about the impending AI, revolution that's going to come in 2050 or 2075 isn't going to pay off your debt or solve your problems today. There are opportunities abound. And if you just Google ways that you can create a side hustle in your life, again, Etsy, eBay, Amazon, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, Upwork, Fiverr, Freelancer, TaskRabbit. Whether you like these conglomerates or not, they offer opportunities. And if they don't pay enough when you try them, go try something else. But don't ever sit there just waddling in your own sorrow thinking that there's not a solution. Because there is a solution. And it starts with communicating with yourself about what you're capable of, communicating with your loved ones about how they can support this endeavor. Maybe there's somebody in your family who could use some support in an endeavor about picking up a side hustle or with their debt consolidation. Do not live in a home where there's topics that aren't discussed at the dinner table, because those are the ones that the internet or social media will be more than happy to fill the void for. If they're not getting that information from you, and it's not an open dialogue where we're not negating, but instead we're accepting and brainstorming and yes-anding, then you're living in a world where they're going to go off and get that information from somewhere else. And are they going to care and love for that person as much as you care for and love that person? Be the conduit of the yes and. Be the conduit for here's lots of different solutions. Let's start practicing or trying each one of these till we find one that fits. A solution's out there. You just have to open your eyes and find it. And then commit yourself to it. And realize that this doesn't have to be the rest of your life, but it's today. And that shows hustle. And that shows determination. And that shows that you are a person who can come up with a contingency plan and then activate upon it. Income and economics can seem wildly confusing whenever we look at it from a bird's eye view. But if we chunk down and look at the way that we're spending our money, saving our money, throttling our money, or how we're working, where we're investing our time and our energy, there are opportunities for you to be able to pull a little from one place to place it to another place to be in a completely different situation in 6 months, a year, or 3 years. People who went to college committed to something for 4 years. And while I don't really think that college degrees are worth what they have ever said they're worth, let alone what they used to be, what it does show is that somebody is committed to going to an institution and doing something for 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years in order to achieve the potential outcome that they desire. Do the same in your own life. Pick up a side gig and say, you know what, for the next 4 years we're doing this, but we're going to be able to pay the house off instead of 30 years in 9 years. Figure out ways to start making sure your money stays in your pocket. Stop giving it to those who don't care about you. And it starts with communication, it starts with honesty, and a little bit of humility. But I promise you, there is a way out, and it's through. As always, my friends, it is an honor and a privilege to be able to come here and talk to you guys each and every day that we do this. When you're ready to build the skills, the network, and the confidence to be ready for whatever comes next, whether that's your income and economics, whether that's your mobility, whether that's your health, whether that's food and water, it could be your community leadership. If you're looking for people who are yes and driven, looking for solutions, you should join us at AmericanContingency.com. We're here when you're ready. And hey, we'll keep the fire going for you so you can find your way. See you next time. Bye-bye.